Vasishta continued. Having heard the precepts of the preceptor, Bhagiratha decided to perform a religious rite as a prelude to total renunciation of the world. In 3 days he had given away everything to the priests and to his own relatives, whether they were endowed with good nature or not. His own kingdom he handed over to his enemies living across the borders. Clad in a small piece of loincloth, he left the kingdom and roamed in countries and forests where he was totally unknown. He wasn't going to play the game anymore. It was of no consequence to him. Very soon he had attained a state of supreme peace within himself. Accidentally and unknowingly, Bhagiratha entered his own previous kingdom and solicited alms from the citizens there. They recognized him, worshipped him, and prayed that he should be their king. But he accepted from them nothing but food. They bewailed, "This is King Bhagiratha. What a sad plight, what an unfortunate turn of events." After a few days he left the kingdom again. Bhagiratha once again met his preceptor, and the two of them roamed the country, all the time engaged in spiritual dialogue. Why do we still carry the burden of this physical body? On the other hand, why should it be discarded? Let it be as long as it will be. They were devoid of sorrow and of rejoicing, nor could they be said to adhere to the middle path. In other words, they weren't trying to do some kind of balancing act between sorrow and rejoicing. They were in an equanimous state. Even if the gods and sages offered them wealth and psychic powers, they spurned them as blades of dry grass. They were onto something better than the normal ups and downs of sorrow and joy. They were even onto something better than psychic powers and the delights of heaven. In a certain kingdom the king had died without an heir, and the ministers were in search of a suitable ruler. Bhagiratha, clad in a loincloth, happened to be in that kingdom. The ministers decided that he was the person fit to ascend the throne and surrounded him. Perhaps the royal elephant had chosen him, as it did in the case of Gadi earlier on. Bhagiratha mounted the royal elephant. Soon he was crowned king. While he was ruling that kingdom, the people of his previous kingdom approached him once again and prayed that he should rule that kingdom also. Bhagiratha accepted. Thus he became the emperor of the whole world. Remaining at peace within himself, with his mind silenced, free from desires and jealousy, he engaged himself in doing appropriate action in circumstances as they arose. So this is the usual story of self-enquiry. You give up everything. You establish yourself in supreme peace, in self-realization, and then it doesn't really matter. Your circumstances don't really matter. So Bhagiratha gave up his kingdom. From a certain point of view, it seemed quite a selfish act. But he probably wouldn't have been a very good king at that time. You know, if he'd carried on out of a sense of duty, it'd have been to his detriment and to those around him. So he went off, he found himself, he became established in the self. He then found himself becoming a king again. And he would have become a much better king than before, because he's ruling free from desires and jealousy, dealing with circumstances in an objective fashion as they arose. And the whole point about Bhagiratha is that he brought the river Ganges down to earth, and that's what the last paragraph tells us. Once he heard that the only way to propitiate the souls of his departed ancestors was to offer libation with the waters of the Ganga. In order to bring the heavenly Ganga down to earth, he repaired to the forest to perform austerities, having entrusted the empire to his ministers. There he propitiated the gods and the sages, and achieved the most difficult task, of bringing the Ganga down to earth, so that all the people for all time to come might offer libations to their ancestors with the waters of the holy Ganga. It is only from that time that the sacred Ganga, which adorned the crown of Lord Shiva's head, began to flow on the earth. If you see a picture of Shiva, you'll notice the stream of water springing from his locks. This is the sacred Ganga. So the Yoga Vasishta here has taken this story on board as well. It's bringing the main strands of Hinduism under the umbrella of self-enquiry. So even King Bhagiratha, who brought the sacred river Ganges down to earth, realized himself through self-enquiry.